So the first thing that we need to do with classes is define that we want to call a class or to create a class, and we do that using the class keyword, and then we give it the name that we wish to give it. In this case I will call this person, and then on the next slide we put a colon again to show that we're now working in this area. And so what we can do here is we can give it attributes or variables. So I'll call this one actually no, I'll give it a definition first. And what we do here is we have to pass it the self, then we have to pass it say gender and name, and these are two things which we're going to pass in whenever we initialize this function in this class, and they will get passed in automatically, and we can do something with these, which is something that you should do most of the time whenever you use this sort of object-oriented programming, and that is to do self.gender is equal to gender. Now that might seem sort of trivial, but what that allows it to do is, because self is contained within the class, self can now be called within any function within the class, whereas gender and name we would have to pass in every single time. But because we're initializing a class here, whenever we do initialize the class and we pass in this data, we only want this data to be within one class, and that is what an object, and that is what a class would allow us to do. It will contain it within the one object or the one instance of the class. So if we do self.name is equal to name, and that will allow us to again pass in a name only once. So now if I do a def, and I'll call this one display, and all I have to do is pass in self, and all the data is now within self. So here then all I need to do is do print, and I'll do your a, and then I'll do self.gender, and then I will do and your name is self.name. I should have another comma there. And if we run this, oh no, not quite ready yet. And the next thing we need to do is initialize it. So the way we do this is we create a variable. So I'll call this one people, and then is equal to, and then I'll do person. And within these brackets we need to now pass in gender and name. So gender, I'm going to put male, and name is Alex. And now if we actually run this, so if we do people.display and click run, then you'll see you get you're a male and your name is Alex, which is passed, these two variables are passed into initialization, which is a pre-built function which we have to define anyway, and that is whenever something is called it gets initialized, and so whatever variables are in here get passed to the second, third and so on variables within the class. As you can see here we've got self.gender. Now that's something we haven't actually seen yet before, and that just means that self is an object and gender is a variable within that object. So when we're passing self in, that allows us to access any of the attributes that we are associating with this class. So any variable that is within the class we can call by doing self.gender or self.name or self.whatever, and we can also call self. And we can also call functions that way. So here we could do self.display if we wanted to call display within this actual class for whatever reason. So if we had say a validation function or something, we would be able to call that within another function and have it process itself. And all you have to do is just put a self dot in front of it. So that is a quick overview of how to use the class attribute or the class keyword and how to define a class. We'll be covering more about methods in the next video, so I'll see you soon.